WeWork wanted to become the next Facebook, the next Google.
It became this poster child for this growing trend of flexible offices.
They had already reached $1 billion valuation.
WeWork was the most overvalued company in the world.
They were willing to spend any amount of money.
When I say they're serving alcohol, they are serving alcohol.
Make some noise!
Everything about WeWork was propaganda.
For God's sakes, they're renting desks.
Yeah, dude, I'll sell you a desk. Let's go!
Bienvenidos a Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love, when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Brian Brushwood. Most importantly, Tom, it's so curious to me because I know the WeWork story as it was told on Wondery via podcast, and I thought it was quite good. You know the WeWork story covering it live as news. I wonder, I would love to not now, but like at some point, take 15 minutes and talk about like what how the history books are going to describe it versus how it looked in the moment.
What was the blood test company startup?
Theranos.
Yes.
Theranos.
Yes.
Theranos and Juicero and WeWork.
The trifecta.
All kind of sit in this area of, well, Theranos, I don't think we ever covered on DTNS. Juicero, we may have covered once or twice. WeWork a few times more, but they all sat in this area of Daily Tech News Show that was like, I don't know why this is getting so much attention. It's not something to cover that much. And so it was interesting to see like, oh no, but you're missing the boat, Daily Tech News Show. And then oh no, you were right. There wasn't anything there. So yeah, that'd be fun to talk about.
What would be the fairest way from the 1,000-foot up view to explain to somebody who doesn't follow tech stuff, who didn't listen to podcasts or whatever, like WeWork? What's the deal with that? And like my version of it would be, they rented desks, but they had a very highly charismatic, energetic leader who was able to project a deeper vision that got people to really get into renting desks.
Well, not even just that, right? If you know what a co-working space is, it's easier for me to explain, right? Because co-working spaces themselves are not the interesting part. They're de rigueur, they still exist. Well, not so much with pandemic, but they will probably exist again. But co-working spaces weren't new, and that wasn't what was special about WeWork. Co-working spaces are a good idea. People use them all the time. What happened was WeWork said, we're not just a co-working space, we're fill-in vision here, and got a lot of people to pour money into his company for no apparent reason. Where co-working spaces were like a pretty good idea that we're probably going to make money. He convinced people that his version of co-working spaces would be stratospheric money makers.
Right. Truly visionary, which only makes Bryce's perspective the most interesting to me, because to you, I assume
I live under a rock over here.
No. Like you ain't got a dog in the fight as far as it was happening, or I assume you've not listened to the Wondery podcast about it.
I follow the news. Hello, Tech News. I listen to Daily Tech News Show.
I stand corrected. What is your perspective?
It seems I think it's been pretty well covered here. It seems like a pretty basic idea sold by kind of a charismatic, leader, which it kind of is very much how they set up this trailer that we watched for this Hulu documentary called WeWork. It's very long, or the making and breaking of a $47 billion unicorn, which is make your subtitles shorter than this, please. But that's coming April 2nd. I think it's one of those things where just big money follows big money to a certain degree, and that all collapses if you don't have the astronomical growth that comes with the astronomical raising of money that you have.
Okay. Well, and the other crazy thing is WeWork's still a company.
Yeah, it's still around.
It still exists, and it still could be a perfectly legitimate business. It's just not going to be the one that he promised everybody.
We have two options. We can either talk about the primary target, or Bryce, How much are you interested in that desk that you're sitting behind right now? Oh. Oh, wow.
We're starting the show over, folks.
Start the show.
The whole show starts over.
Now let's get into the primary
It's better
target.
that way. It's better.
I think of our trip along the history of cord cutting and the transformation of television as a puzzle sometimes. And I feel like there are certain pieces I'm looking for that I think are going to happen. And this is one of those pieces. The U.S. National Football League has finished its media rights deal. They do this every decade or so. This deal will run through 2033, so 11 years, with multiple partners. Usual folks are back: Viacom, CBS, Fox, NBC Universal. They're all going to pay $2 billion a year or more for the rights to run National Football League games. Disney's going to pay $2.7 billion to run its games on ABC and ESPN. That's all fairly expected, not that unusual. But we have a new player in the game, Amazon, paying $1 billion for exclusive rights to run Thursday night football games. You may say, well, Amazon was doing Thursday night already, Tom. Yes, they were streaming games that were also broadcast and streamed by other networks. Starting in 2023, Thursday night football will only be on Amazon Prime Video. It's possible they may broadcast them in the local markets of the two teams playing, but national broadcast only on Amazon Prime Video. The major partners will also be able to stream all of their games. That was mostly happening, but it's formalized in this agreement. So Disney will be able to stream football games on ESPN Plus, including one game exclusive to ESPN Plus per year. NBC Universal will be able to simulcast its broadcasts on Peacock, including a select number of exclusive games there that you'll only get on Peacock. Viacom CBS will simulcast on Paramount Plus, and Fox will not just simulcast on its Fox app, it will simulcast its NFL games on Tubi. And that's free and ad supported. We'll see if it stays that way, but it is right now. National Football League finalized its 11 media agreement. The NFL said in its own release about the issue that it will continue to be the only sports league to deliver all of its contests, regular season and postseason, on over-the-air television. Now, that implies what I mentioned earlier, that even with Amazon, local broadcasts of games that are exclusive to these streaming services might be broadcast over the air. Say if, Arizona is playing Los Angeles and Arizona stations would carry it over the air, but everybody else would have to get it either from ESPN Plus or Amazon or whoever's streaming it.
So I probably should have reached out to you before the show and asked whether or not this was a worthy conversation to bring up. But at any moment, cut me off. But I feel like this is one that I want to sort of toss over our own heads out to our patrons, our bosses, all the folks who write in at cordkillers@gmail.com. And at the risk of moving the goalposts, like it was definitely a big deal when sports came to over-the-top streaming services. But what I fear is, like, we were never a sports broadcast network or whatever. So all of a sudden, like, I don't know, where should we define victory or our end game or our favorite hooray? Because as we've talked about, I'm not super huge into sports. I know that's not your primary motivator. However, both of us, we are definitely, we understand that sports is validation for a cord cutting environment, but what I fear is that 3 years from now we're still talking about, and now this other sports thing is on another sports thing. So I
feel like what you're asking me is, what is the significance of this?
No. I understand the significance. The significance is continuing to win, continuing to do well, continuing to move forward. But
that's not. This may not be apparent to people because I don't bring it up much. I have never seen any of this as victory or defeat or winning.
I do.
I've always seen this as there is an inevitable transformation happening, and you can either be ahead of it and take the benefit of it, or you can be behind it. And the way I look at this is interesting. Because like you said, rightly so, for a long time, it was like, how am I going to get my sports? And then sports showed up on YouTube TV, AT&T, Sling TV, et cetera. And it became possible to get your sports without having to have cable, pretty much all of it, depending on how much you're willing to spend. This changes the game, to be the same situation that people are complaining about with like, how many of these do I have to get my shows? Whereas before, sports was like, oh, well, you just get AT&T TV and then you'll get all your sports, right? Now it's like, oh, but if you don't have ESPN Plus, you won't get that game. Oh, and if you don't have Amazon Prime Video, you won't get any Thursday night games. And suddenly we've changed the situation where sports is not locked away in the cable analog anymore. Sports is now moving, big sports like NFL, already was happening with a lot of other sports, to these channels, which makes me think that the real story here isn't about how you get your sports. The real story here is the metaphor for television looks like it's tilting towards big aggregate channels. So instead of YouTube TV, Sling TV being the future, they're a Band-Aid that gets us to this situation where you get your sports by subscribing to Peacock, ESPN Plus, via Paramount Plus, Tubi, and Amazon Prime Video. And that is a very different situation where it's truly a la carte. And you pick the channels you want. And if your sports are spread across multiple channels, you might have to pick multiple channels.
So if I could take a hard left turn, I wonder if where we're not headed is some version of the big wars are being able to just shout out words to your digital assistant of whatever variety, Amazon device, play the big game, whatever that means, and then it's on, right? Okay, G-Dog, play the big game, and then it goes on. Yo, S-word, play the big game. I'm just going to keep coming up with like increasingly filthy sounding names for all the digital assistants. But you see where I'm headed here, right? Where it's like, I wonder if we're going to become increasingly less interested in how the delivery is happening and am more interested in how do I cause the game to appear in front of me?
I think you're right in the sense of we'll be able to say, I want to watch the Vikings game. And your, big D assistant will say, oh, okay, I'm putting it on your TV now. And if you already get the subscription that it's on, you're fine.
Right.
But if you don't, it's going to say, oh, that game's on Peacock. Would you like me to subscribe you to Peacock? And you'll be like, boy, I really want to watch that game. Okay. Or you'll be like, nah, I guess it's not that big a deal. No, I don't want to have to subscribe to something. Although Peacock's a bad example because they'll have ad supported version, so it might be on the free tier.
No. It might be a great example specifically because you're probably going to phrase it as, how do I watch the so-and-so game? And it says, well, it's streaming for free for Peacock if you do a 7-day trial. Do you want me to do that for you? And you're like, yeah, go ahead. And then suddenly the game's on and you don't think about it. And
what really happens is it's free with a 7-day trial. Would you like me to do that for you? Yes. I'm sorry. You can't do that because you've already used your 7-day trial last week. Like that. Sure. That's the kind of thing that happens in those situations. But yeah, we'll have a situation where you'll be able to say, I want to watch the game. And then that's where it gets interesting to me is what are those opportunities that it can present to you? Will it be like we're seeing here, Paramount Plus, Peacock, Amazon Prime Video, or will there also be another way, right? Right now, the other thing we haven't mentioned here is you can also subscribe to games directly through the leagues. The only thing they do is they black out your local games because the local affiliates want to make sure they're getting your eyeballs through their subscription, right? So the local affiliates get money for every subscription that happens to cable, and they don't want to lose that. That's why there's blackouts of local games. It's not a blackout because they don't want you to watch. It's they want you to watch through the way they get money, and they don't get as much money through the league app. But in this situation where they're making these new deals directly with these services, they may be able to carve out a situation where they're like, oh, you could also just pay us. You could pay the NFL for Sunday Ticket. You could pay Major League Baseball for MLB at bat. At which point, coming back to your thing with the voice assistant, you say, "Hey, I want to watch the Vikings game," and it's like, "Oh, great! You hear your options. You can watch it for free on Tubi, or you can pay the NFL." You're like, "Well, I'm going to watch it for free on Tubi." Oh, you can either buy Paramount Plus or pay the NFL, right? And at some point you decide, you know what, I'm just going to pay the NFL for it because I don't want to have to think about it anymore. If you're the person that watches them all the time.
Yeah, and I suppose to answer my own question, I suppose the answer is never. We never stop reporting on these incremental changes because they all matter. However, in terms of the nature in which we like I could see them moving to increasingly, more footnotey types of stories. For example, like it used to be top story, a Netflix series is up for an Emmy. And then it's like, okay, it won an Emmy. Now it wins a lot of Emmys. Okay, now they win most of the Emmys. And now it's like a third tier story is like, yeah, there was Emmys, Netflix and Amazon and all of them got a lot of them. And I think that's where we're headed.
We're not anywhere close to that with sports broadcasts because it's still not decided what it's going to be.
Yeah,
right?
I do believe, and forgive me if I misheard you. Did I hear the year 2033?
Yeah, this deal runs 11 years.
Okay, all right, right, okay. Yeah, you're right. It'll be a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, folks, there is one thing you can do that is immediate. You don't have to wait 11 years. You don't have to figure out what channel it's on, and that's support this show directly.
Yeah, look, we were talking about Tom was really bummed out the other day. I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but I overheard him and Bryce talking on the phone, and I said, "Hey, what's going on, fellas?" And they were like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And I was like, "No, come on, you could tell me." And they were like, "We'd really rather not. I'm a bit embarrassed about the whole thing." I was like, "Guys, you two are my second and third best friends after my wife." And they said, "Well, we just want to know how we could do some good in the universe right this minute." And I was like, "Fellas, it's so simple. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Give us $1 an episode. Keep us loud, live, and independent. Get the news about how to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you please, and you'll feel better about yourself." And then there was this awkward pause. And then Tom and Bryce, in unison, which rarely happens, say, "Brian, are you doing a bit on us?" And I said, "Yes, I'm doing a bit on you. This is the ad read. I do every single time." Yeah. And then, and it was cool.
And that was a cool bit.
Yeah. Folks, won't work for me and Bryce because we're on this show.
We're already on the show.
We'll
We already
work
get
for
it
you.
for free.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's talk about how to watch. AT&T will no longer exempt HBO Max from streaming data caps starting on March 25th, just a couple days away from this recording. This comes after a federal court upheld California's net neutrality law, although AT&T says the change is going to impact all U.S. subscribers because according to AT&T, quote, "the internet does not recognize state borders unless we want it to and use an IP address." California SB 822 makes it unlawful to engage in something called zero rating unless you apply it to an entire category. So it's defined in the law as, quote, "exempting some internet traffic from a customer's data usage allowance." It also prohibits paid prioritization. So you can't say, "Oh, it's not zero rating. I'm paying AT&T to have my bits delivered faster." When AT&T announced the exclusion of HBO Max, it said it was paying itself for the privilege and that other companies like Netflix could do that too. But the courts in California said, no, that's still zero rating. You can't do that. So AT&T decided to punish the whole country for the sins of one of us.
Or Sims, as in SIM cards. Tom, pop trivia for you. How many internet service providers do you pay for?
3.
Okay. 4 here. Bryce?
Well, I've got my cell phone and I've got a fiber connection at my home. So I've
Okay. As far as you know, and I'm not saying you read the whole contract because I certainly didn't. But as far as I know, none of the four of them have data caps or whatever. And I understand there's some segment of the populace who is
very large,
very
geographic
upset with
regions where there are
Yes,
significant data caps.
One of mine would have data caps if I didn't pay for a business account.
Right. I pay a lot
the other
of,
one has a data slowdown, like it's unlimited, but if I hit a certain amount, it's a wireless plan that
also
will slow me.
I have a similar thing, only I've been told off the record where it's like, yeah, you'll be air quotes slowed down, by which we mean you'll still go as fast as you want, but just when it gets busy, you'll slow down.
Where are we going with this? Because if you're trying to deny that data caps exist, we're just going to get a lot of emails to cordkillers@gmail.com from people who have data caps and run up against them all the time.
That's exactly what I want, Tom. I want a lot of email.
You can enjoy those.
No. What I want is to know how much has changed. I mean, we've been doing the show for 11 years now, and I want to know how much has changed. So a story about what does and doesn't count towards your data caps. I wonder how many people were very angry.
If I can short circuit this, if I can short circuit this, what this story is about from where I sit is people who can't afford the more expensive plans. If you go for bargain plans from mobile carriers, they will almost always have a data cap. That's a way to save money. So the people who have the least amount of money to spend on mobile are the people with the data caps on mobile. I'm not talking about wired. I'm not talking about home here, because that's not what AT&T is talking about either. We're talking about mobile plans for AT&T. So AT&T was saying, on our cheapest plans, we'll let you have HBO Max without it counting against your data cap. And the state of California said you can't do that. And so AT&T said, fine, then all of the United States can no longer have HBO Max for free on the data caps. Where I may end up arriving at the same destination as you by a different path is I'm not sure how many people care. Even if they have a data cap, I'm not sure how many people cared about how much HBO Max was going to count against their data cap when they weren't at home on Wi-Fi.
Right.
If they had Wi-Fi at home.
Right. And on top of that, like of all the plans, only one of them has a data cap. And even then I never reached
it. Granted, we live in areas where there is actually a lot of competition and for telecommunications.
But again, it's not about wired. It's about mobile. And on mobile, it's about cost. Almost everybody can get an unlimited mobile plan, but
it's expensive.
If you can't afford it, if you want the cheapest plan, a lot of times you do have to go for a data cap.
I don't remember. I think we've pendulum back and forth on this, but I don't know that I've minded that being the law of the land when it comes to zero rating. Zero rating seems inherently unfair to me. That we would prioritize one type of traffic over another.
I don't love it. Yeah. It's not exactly the same as net neutrality. To me, net neutrality is more of the paid prioritization.
Correct.
Where I'll deliver some things better than others. Zero rating is like, okay, I don't love it, but at least AT&T was saying, we'll let Netflix buy in. We're paying ourselves for the HBO Max thing. Like I said, what California does allow is AT&T could say, all video services don't count against your data cap, which is something that T-Mobile does. T-Mobile has exemptions, for certain things, but they're based on the class, and anybody can participate in the class. They just have to go to T-Mobile, like, we're a video service, don't count our bits, and then they're like, okay, great, we can put your domain in here and it won't count, etc. But that's not what AT&T wanted to do. They wanted to charge people to get zero rated on the plans that had caps.
Right. And I suppose what I'm hoping for is 10 years ago, people were very, very vocal with us about their caps and how frustrated they were. And this just a little, let's do a little checkup. Where you at 10 years down the line is all I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. I'd be interested to see how many people in our particular audience are affected by this. There are still a lot of people out there affected by this. How much they care about HBO Max? I don't know.
I care more now that I've been playing around in that space. It's pretty good.
Well, but I mean, do they care that HBO Max is did they even know that HBO Max didn't count against their data cap?
All I know is I get it for free because I have one of the 4 services is AT&T.
Right.
Yeah.
And AT&T might be still doing that. That's allowed. I also think it's just kind of crappy for AT&T to say, well, it's California's fault. You should get California to change their law. We have to do this for the entire country. Because they don't. They don't have to. They could just have it apply to all the IP addresses they know are in California. They just don't want to do that.
From a marketing standpoint, that's not a bad place to be because they end up being able to, even if begrudgingly, be the good guy, right? They get to be all like, California, they really got us over a barrel.
They're being the bad guy. They're saying, hello, person in Massachusetts, I'm taking away your data exemption for HBO Max because of California. Blame them.
Okay, well, I don't like their data exemption to begin with. So
yeah, right.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. Cordkillers@gmail.com.
All right. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location. Under surveillance.
I wonder if Tenet is one of the most longest running movie in theaters ever. But it's almost done. Warner Media is bringing Tenet to HBO Max on May 1st. It has been available for rent or purchase for about 4 months, so you didn't have to go to a theater. You could pay to watch it at home. But now, if you're an HBO Max subscriber, you'll be able to get it as part of HBO Max. Tenet finished its global run with $363 million. Remember, it opened back on September 3rd. So in its months long run, it made back its money. It had a $200 million budget, made $363 million. It's kind of a benchmark, Ryan, because remember we were looking at Tenet as being the one that would happen last July when people went back to theaters, and then that didn't happen. They insisted on theater only.
Little bit of trivia. It's just as long forward as if you watch it backwards.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
If you spell it backwards, it says Racecar.
Radar.
Can we get a Nolan cut of Tenet?
As a matter of fact, he sold it. He said he walked into the room and he said, "A man, a plan, a canal."
Panama.
Tenet.
So there you go. Coming to HBO Max. I think this is also interesting because remember, Warner Media turned heads and angered some folks when it said all of our 2021 movies will come out on HBO Max at the same time as theaters, whereas this one didn't, because Nolan was like, no, it's for theaters, and they had to wait way longer than 90 days.
Yeah, I don't know. It's in a world where entertainment is defined and spelled out and created by spoiled children. It's like you get the best behavior and the best art out of the spoiled children when the spoiled children are happy. So it's hard for me to want to push back against anything Nolan wants.
What I do wonder is why Nolan isn't spelled with 2 O's. Because then you could spell it the same way backwards.
Nolan.
Yeah.
Nolan.
Roku has purchased the company that makes This Old House and its spin-off Ask This Old House. It's called TOH Intermediate Holdings. Their executives will become Roku employees and continue to create programming. The show will continue to premiere on PBS. If you're a PBS fan, it's not going away. But then it will also show on Roku's free ad-supported Roku channel, alongside the entire 1,500 episode back catalog.
1,500 just say all those words again. 1,500 episodes of the back catalog.
Catalog back episode 1,500 entirely alongside channel Roku.
Yeah. Win. You won.
Roku was already had This Old House in its Roku channel, the old episodes. But apparently that wasn't good enough. They wanted to get them as soon as they stopped airing on PBS. So they bought the production company.
Yeah, Roku is, it's too early for me to speculate, but my gut wants to say that, Roku has figured out that it's like, oh, we're the place that grandma's new TV just shows grandma television all the time.
No, for sure. And, I was skeptical that Roku would get into original programming, too much, but They are definitely doing it. And it's not just buying the old Quibi shows, buying a whole production company. This old house. Yeah. I mean, that's carving out a niche, I guess. Maybe we need to throw Roku in there, and that, when we're talking about Peacock, Amazon Prime, like, if Tubi's going to be carrying sports.
I'm so glad you're mentioning that, Tom, because I was just thinking we just needed one more company to keep track of. That's yes.
Oh, well, sure. No, that's not where I was going with that. I was just saying they might be a player along with the other big ones.
They're all players.
You okay there?
Everybody's a player now. It's killing me.
The Hollywood Reporter sources say that HBO is developing 3 Game of Thrones prequels in addition to House of the Dragon. That's the one we know is coming. One prequel has a working title called 9 Voyages about Lord Corlys Velaryon, the Sea Snake, who will also appear in House of the Dragon as a character, by the way. That one is being developed by Bruno Heller, who also created the series Rome. Another one in development is called 10,000 Ships, and would tell the story of Princess Nymeria, who was the founder of Dorne. Also, Arya's direwolf was named after her. 1,000 years before Game of Thrones, that one would be set. The third would be a series set in Flea Bottom. Those are the slums of King's Landing. There's also still a project based on the Dunk and Egg stories, reportedly still in development, as is an animated project. HBO is saying, we're not trying to make a bunch of Game of Thrones prequels. We're developing them until we think they're right, and then we greenlight them.
Sure. And I will 100% believe them and take them at their word. However, here's some heresy we've not indulged with in a little bit. All of this 5 years ago would have been nothing but like just giddiness from both of us. But now, seeing how everything ended, do you think any of these see the light of day?
Well, obviously, House of the Dragon is. That one's greenlit. It's coming. I don't know. I think there's appetite for them. I think it's easy to overestimate the anger at the final season of Game of Thrones and think that torches it. I think that's overreacting. I think if they come out with a really good Game of Thrones prequel that people like, all of that will be forgotten because people liked so much of the rest. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the echo chamber and think Game of Thrones is done. They'll never recover.
Right.
And I don't think that's true at all. But it's also easy to come out with something that's not good. And you'd be forgiven for thinking they're developing too many of these. But I think that's how you make sure you get good ones, is to say, let's develop a lot of them, not greenlight all of them, but keep developing. Remember, they had The Long Night in development and it looked like it was going to come, and then they killed it. To me, that's them being true to their word of like, we're only going to greenlight it if it really meets whatever our standards are.
Yeah, I suppose now what I want to wonder is given the I don't think it's controversial to say that Game of Thrones ended with a whimper, not a scream. Given that's the case, do we think there's a hunger for that world? However, as I say these words, I remember that freaking Amazon spent $150 million for the backdrop of the Lord of the Rings universe without any characters that anybody knew or cared about. So yeah. Could work.
And remember, the books were, huge sellers before the show ever came.
Sure.
And the show just brought in more people. So I think it's a good bet that they'll be able to survive even with just the people who love the books and the world. And if the show's good enough, they can bring back a lot of those people who are just tourists in Westeros.
Yeah.
Here's something that's coming back. Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. This is an animated series that came out in 2003. It's different than the Clone Wars that aired for years and eventually came to Netflix, and they finished up last year with Disney Plus. This was just a couple of seasons. It's no longer considered canon. They restarted over with the Clone Wars you're probably more familiar with. But Tartakovsky's Clone Wars is coming back to Disney Plus, as is the 80s Saturday morning show Ewoks that follows Wicket and friends on Endor, set prior to A New Hope. Both series will launch on Disney Plus April 2nd. I'm
going to pretend I only heard the first half of that comment and say I'm very, very excited because Clone Wars was good. I always said Gennady, but I guess it's Gendy Tartakovsky.
Maybe it's
That's
Gennady. I could be
Samurai
getting it wrong.
Jack. Super good. I liked it quite a bit.
I've always loved the style of Tartakovsky's Clone Wars more than the one that came out later.
There was one hot minute where they were talking about adapting Stephen King's The Dark Tower as a Gennady Tartakovsky HBO series, and I was just like mind blown. There was nothing that was tastier to my interests.
Yeah. I had to watch these. I think I watched these on a YouTube channel that probably didn't have the rights to show them.
No, I watched it bootleg as well.
Yeah, but they're great. It's roughly the same story as the first couple seasons of the other Clone Wars. It's different in a lot of ways. It's a little more surreal in a lot of ways, but you still have Ventress. You still have, a lot of the characters. It's all the same story factory. It was coming out of Lucasfilm at a time when Lucas was still there. So I'm glad that these are legit. I don't know if I'll watch the whole thing again, but I'll probably, April 2nd, I'll probably watch the first one just to get a taste.
Yeah.
A few other notes here. Apple TV Plus has ordered a half-hour comedy series starring Maya Rudolph about a woman whose husband leaves her with $87 billion, and that ruins her perfect life. It's a comedy. Paramount will release all 4 Indiana Jones movies on Ultra HD Blu-ray. That means in 4K on physical media for the first time, along with Dolby Vision and HDR10. Box set arrives June 8th for around $100, depending on where you get it. And Killing Eve will start filming its 4th season early this summer and will be the last. They are not going to do one after the 4th season. However, BBC America is exploring the idea of spin-offs set in the same world.
So the Maya Rudolph project, I'm just picturing like number one, Maya Rudolph is amazing. But are we filling the niche of like a Brewster's Millions type thing where it's like there's strings attached to what it's like to become an $87 million
maybe.
person?
This is from creator and writers Yang and Hubbard, Alan Yang and Matt Hubbard. They're former, I don't know, they've done a bunch of stuff that you would know, including Saturday Night Live stuff. Parks and Rec alum, Hubbard, won writing Emmy for 30 Rock.
Dude, I'm 100% in, just for the record. I just want to know what itch gets to be scratched here.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual description here.
I would imagine they would be coy about details, but that's fine.
Especially if it's straight to series.
Rudolph will play Molly, a woman whose seemingly perfect life is upended after her husband leaves her with nothing but $87 billion.
Actually, that is, if you want to go down a rabbit hole, read the harrowing tales of everybody who's ever won the lottery ever. It's awful. I feel
like this is Maya Rudolph had a perfect life because she had access to all the money, all the benefits of the money without having to manage it. And that, now in this plot, now she's responsible for stewarding the money.
Yeah. And
all of the headaches that are involved with it. Probably some revenge plot of like, oh, you love the money so much? Well, you can have it. I'm out of here.
Only I've animated the money and they're nanobots. It's nano money.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I sent it to a planet where mother and father will raise the money.
Very specific.
Let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. Brian, what is something that isn't Justice League that you watched?
Can I confess I never got around to, I'm so conflicted about even watching Justice League.
Well, let's talk about that in a second. What did you watch?
I have watched all of Alan V. Farrow, the HBO documentary series about Woody Allen and Mia Farrow and how they were fighting about what their kids did or didn't do. I feel like there were moments they gave a nod to the appearance of even-handedness, but there was not, and it ended up looking very one-sided. And even if they're right, it just felt like they were right for the wrong reasons. I didn't care for it.
All right. I know there's sort of a trend of if you've seen this, you tend to feel more negative about things than if you haven't.
Yeah, and basically because they're like, no, naturally we have to let Woody Allen have his say, so we'll cherry pick some clips from his audiobook, and there, that counts. That's balance. Hey, it's us, the Fox News of Allen versus Farrow.
Mm-hmm. Not that he would have cooperated and given them an interview or anything, one would guess. But, well, okay, let's talk about Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League. 4 hours and 2 minutes of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I know you're not excited about it. I know everybody's probably sick of hearing about it. So let me just give you my quick experience. Eileen and I sat down and over 5 hours, made it through 4 hours of television with a few breaks here and there, plenty of snacks. And I also before I watched it, I watched the very open of Joss Whedon's version. And then after I watched Zack Snyder's, I fast forwarded through Joss Whedon's just to see what parts were in there. I think it's way too long. I don't think it needed to be that long. It definitely drags in parts, but I think it's better. I think ultimately it is a better cut. It's more consistent. I don't feel like it's multiple movies, and I don't feel like it's all over the place. So there you go. If you've got 4 hours to spare and you really like these characters, I think you'll have a slightly better experience. I'm not sure if it was worth it or not, but there you go.
I did see a headline that said this movie is being presented in 4:3 because of Zack Snyder. What was that, an IMAX thing or what?
Yeah, he wanted it to be in that tall IMAX aspect ratio, so he insisted that this would show up on your television set in 4:3, and yeah, they did have a little message right before it played to let you know there's nothing wrong with your TV. This is what Zack Snyder intended. A lot of people got bent out of shape about that. I got used to it pretty quick.
I would imagine you would, but it is a bit weird to start your movie with, hey, it's on purpose. Go.
Because if you don't, people are going to be like, do I have the wrong version of this? Like, why is it 4:3? Because we're used to 4:3 signaling 1080p or less. Right. And this is full surround sound, full resolution, all of that. You're not getting an inferior version. So I get why they put the message up there.
So recommend or no recommend?
Well, my recommendation is what I just said, which is if you got 4 hours to spare and you love these characters, you'll get a slightly better experience than the other one.
That sounds like a not recommendation.
You take it however you want. I enjoyed the story. I just thought it took too long. I'd like to see a cut down version. Maybe
one theatrically released with a widescreen format.
Yeah. Could you keep it to 2 hours? This is great. But just keep
this is what I'm trying to avoid. All right. I'm gonna have to watch
I really
it.
did. I really do think this is a superior version. If too long, and yeah. There you go. Bryce. What should we be on the lookout for, Bryce?
Hi, everybody. We've got a recommendation this week from Supernova Girl. She writes, "Hello, Cordkillers. The show I'd like to recommend is Breeders on FX / Hulu. Hulu's got that FX thing. It's an American-British parental comedy television series created by Martin Freeman, Chris Addison, and Simon Blackwell. The series follows two parents who struggle with parenthood and is partially based on Freeman's own experience as a parent. Freeman also plays the lead role in the series. As someone who doesn't have kids, I find some of the things in it hilarious, but for those who do, it's relatable. The first season, the kids are under 10 years old, and the second season, they time jump, and now they're 13 and 11. There is rough subject matter and harsh language. I love watching your show every week, and have recently become a patron. Thank you, guys. Supernova Girl. Thank you, Supernova Girl. I watched the first episode of this, and this reminded me, do you guys remember, in there are a lot of parental comedies out there right now, right? Because I watched this, and I thought, didn't I already watch this? Because I think even FX has a few.
Yeah.
But I thought this was interesting because it definitely feels like a British take on this genre, if I could be so reductionist. They kind of are both working parents, and they're cursing at the kids, and they're trying not to, and then they're figuring out whole parental thing. I'm saying who has no kids. But I thought it was pretty cute. I don't know. I think this is a good recommendation. Thank you, Supernova Girl.
Right on. And you said this was an American co-production or
it is on FX.
Right. Okay. But it feels like a British show is what I was hearing.
Yeah. I mean, it's Martin Freeman and it takes place in Britain.
Yeah.
But I think the wife is American. I actually am not entirely sure. I was kind of, I was only half watching.
Sorry.
But check it out. It's on Hulu. It's called Breeders. Check it out. If you have something we should be on the lookout for, email us, cordkillers@gmail.com.
Listen, folks, we don't give you this show if we don't have a computer because it's recorded on a computer.
Well, technically, we would give you the show. It would just be in flipbook format or maybe as a series of chick tracks.
True. We probably would. We'd probably do something like that. And then
Actually,
it would take a lot longer to get to you.
Now that I think about it, we should do a bunch of chick tracks about cutting the cord and about how the
so here's the thing. If we don't have
television.
computers, you have to go driving around to find all the chick tracks of Cordkillers.
Yes. And one way to make sure that we make chick tracks about Cordkillers is for you to support us by going to doghousesystems.com/rogue. Use promo code ROGUE at checkout. You'll get a free SSD and we'll have money so that we can make chick tracks.
Yes. The best of both worlds. Also, Brian is going to fund this chick track product out of his entire pocket. I can tell already, Brian. How are you gonna make money to do that?
I'm sorry, too busy drawing on this notebook. On this Post-it note. I'm making a chick track.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. That's all I want to talk about.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the front lines then.
Front lines.
Hey, here's some shocking news. The Motion Picture Association reports that online video subscriptions increased 26% last year in 2020 to 1.1 billion globally. Digital entertainment accounted for 76% of global home entertainment, up from 48% in 2019. But the combined theatrical and home entertainment markets still shrank overall 18% on the year to 80.8 billion. So the uptick in people paying for video subscriptions did not make it for the shortfall in people paying to go to the theater.
So emotionally, where does that leave you? Because on the one hand, it's like, yeah, we're finally getting the thing we want, day and date releases, watching what we want when we want. And it's like, oh, wait, did we shrink the whole pie? And also, we didn't do any of this. It was the global pandemic.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion of day and date release, man. That's it. No one will go to the theaters again, and we don't need theaters. Theaters are going to die. And what this shows is, A, people were going to the theaters in large enough amounts that video subscriptions couldn't make up for it. And B, last year is not a good sample. Last year is not scientifically valid in saying what's going to happen and what's not, because people just didn't spend money on a lot of things for a lot of reasons and spent money on weird stuff. So the way I look at this is this shows that it's not a given that home video subscriptions could make up for theaters. I think people are still going to go to theaters. Studios are still going to want that theatrical money. And so this coming year is going to be very telling in, where that pie goes.
But it really is like a total Rorschach test where it's like everybody can read it however it is they want. Like you could decide this is proof that the old model was the best model or the new way is the new way or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't really tell you anything, so you can kind of see whatever you want in it.
Amazon now covers 88 cities in its free ad-supported local news app for the Fire TV. That brings it to a total of 120 channels. That's still shy of the 275 stations in the News On app, but the Fire TV version comes pre-installed. This is another one. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Tell me who's using these.
Netflix signed a multi-year lease for 2 sound stages at Japan's Studio Toho, the place that made all the Godzilla movies. That starts in April. Upcoming movies from Netflix like Yu Yu Hakusho and Sanctuary will shoot there. Netflix has 25 titles planned to be released from Japan this year.
YouTube TV has added more Viacom CBS channels like Nick Jr., MTV2. Main channels like Nickelodeon and MTV were added last year, but the sub-channels were not. That earlier edition came with a price increase, but this time YouTube TV will stay at $65 a month.
Yeah, I feel like after CBS and Viacom merged, that kind of cool separation where Viacom was going it alone and like we're gonna make our own system. We're not gonna play in other people's yards. And CBS was like, everyone can have all of our stuff, just pay us. The rubber had to meet the road somewhere, and it looks like we're getting more of the CBS approach to things. And so instead of Viacom holding out and like, okay, you can have Nickelodeon and MTV, but not the sub channels. We're going to save those for our own thing. They're
like, psych.
They're giving in, and you're going to see these show up on more places, is my guess. Walmart has a house brand called On, spelled with 2 N's, ONN, which includes tablets, Roku TVs, and will soon include an Android TV stick, one of those HDMI things you plug into your TV. An FCC listing says it runs Android TV 10, but the remote is almost exactly like the reference design for Google TV. So it may have Google TV on it as well. No word on a release date.
Okay. HBO Max has made avatars of 120 different characters from its properties like The Sopranos and Game of Thrones, but also lets you upload your own photo. You'll need to use the mobile app or choose your own to choose or upload your own photo. The feature starts rolling out today and should be available to all subscribers by March 26th. I assume this is like right now when I go to HBO Max, it says, "Are you B or B?" And I'm like, what's going on? B for Brian or B for Bonnie? And it's like, okay, well, give me a picture.
Yeah. And this is the first of the major streaming services to allow you to upload your own photo, right? So Netflix used to let you import your Facebook photo, but then they stopped that. And so Netflix, Disney Plus, they let you choose an avatar, but you have to choose from their pre-selected set. HBO Max will let you put your own face or someone else's face. You can put whatever you want. So you could upload a photo.
It used to be, are you B or B for Bonnie and Brian? Now it's, are you B or B or B? The third B is a butt.
Is that right? So will you have photos of all three of those replace the letters?
Ooh, hold on. Let me grab a pen.
You don't have to do it now. Your app may not have it yet. So you don't seem to be that entertained by the idea.
The most I've done is as long as it was only me or Bonnie using the app, we never even bothered to have separate accounts. It wasn't until the kids got on board that they started picking things, and I was like, I don't know. Like, for example, on Netflix, my avatar is Peanut Butter Dog from BoJack Horseman, and even then, I don't feel like that truly speaks to who I am.
Well, you could now on HBO Max have a photo of yourself.
My butt.
Or your butt.
Yeah.
Whatever speaks to truly who you are.
Yeah. That's
what you should have. Let's get to the dispatches from the front. Thomas Clark, terrible film critic extraordinaire, wrote in to point out that Rotten Tomatoes uses up or down in its ratings, and Metacritic tries to take the score, if depending on how the critic does it, and turn that into numbers. And so Thomas was saying that explains why you have a different score on Rotten Tomatoes that is so different from Metacritic, because they're using two different ways to calculate that score. Metacritic says 55. Rotten Tomatoes says 73%. TLDR, writes Thomas, Rotten Tomatoes sucks. Use Metacritic. P.S. Apologies to Tom's wife.
First of all, that's an offense to Tom's wife. Second of all, I think that's an important difference. And I think it's something that I both love and find frustrating about Rotten Tomatoes as a personal heuristic, because on the one hand, Rotten Tomatoes is very, very good at making sure that you will not be made to feel the sucker on just about any movie. However, if something is polarizing, if it's hard, if it's something that's going to make you feel bad and angry, or like the example I always give, and I know scores have drifted over time, but at the time that that Fight Club came out, I believe it got a 65 on Rotten Tomatoes. At the same time, Finding Nemo had a 99. And it's like, I will go to the mat to say that Fight Club is a better movie than Finding Nemo. But in general, more people would find Finding Nemo thumbs up-y than thumbs in your eyeballs.
Yeah. And while Thomas is absolutely right that that's why you get the divergence, there's still, I think there's still an argument to be had over or which one is more representative. For instance, Netflix used to let you pick stars. How many stars do you want? When you rated your own Netflix stuff, and they switched to a thumbs up, thumbs down, because what they found is that when you give people 5 stars, they generally just choose 3 for everything. Whereas if you make them choose thumbs up or thumbs down, they will pick a side. And so Rotten Tomatoes is going on that premise of like, if we try to, use the numbers, it's not all the same anyway, because not every critic uses numbers. Not every critic uses the same scale. And so Metacritic's having to do some interpretation on their side. But Rotten Tomatoes says, we think the thumbs up, thumbs down gives you a better representation of the overall mood. Metacritic says, no, it doesn't. And you can reasonably, pick a side and come up with justifications. I'm not sure that there's any way of determining which one objectively is better than the other.
Yeah, and I feel like your goal for using the service is going to be different at different times. Like, if I'm going to take the whole family somewhere, I ain't going out to the movie theater for anything less than 90% thumbs up on Rotten Tomatoes, right? But if it's me, like I'll take a big old risk on a 65% highly polarized, either action adventure or heartbreaking commentary on something.
Well, and also I think what really matters is consistency across the platform. And it doesn't bother me that Metacritic has a different number than Rotten Tomatoes
or voice.
What is important is if I'm a Metacritic user, that 55 makes sense, that I can compare that to other ratings on Metacritic and go, oh, 55 means this.
Right.
And so now I know what that means, because Rotten Tomatoes works the same way. If you're like, oh, I know that if it's above 70, it's probably something I like. If it's below 70, maybe not. Different people have different interpretations. So if you use Metacritic, then, that's fine too. I don't think, because they're using entirely different systems for calculating their scores, it is apples and oranges trying to compare them across the platform. And there's not necessarily the best way to calculate that score because it's all some, semantic stuff anyway.
Right. Blair writes in saying that he was in a T-Mobile trying to get their new 5G wireless internet-based station. Just FYI, it was an internet-only order kind of deal.
I think he's talking about a hotspot.
Yeah. Anyway, they were trying to upsell them on their TV service, and he said that he's been a cord cutter for 10 plus years, and the kid, who may have been in his early 20s, and I'm 56, so he's a kid to me, said, "What is a cord cutter?" So I guess you have to be of a certain age to even know that term, especially if you've never had cable TV. That's why you got to tell them you're a cord murderer. That's going to be our new show.
Right.
Slayer
cord
of cords.
slaughterer.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. First degree cord. You know what? Cord cutting. We've talked for years about how, kids are growing up today without, understanding that, television doesn't have a touchscreen, or you can't always pause and rewind a live broadcast. It makes sense if this kid's in his early 20s, he's Gen Z. He's like, what's the cord?
Right.
What cord would you cut? Like, I don't even know what a cord is. So yeah, that's a generation specific. You have to be millennial or older. To understand. I get it. Thank you, Blair.
The cord that we have to cut is the financial support that we give to anybody under 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cord you truly cut is the friends you made along the way.
It got dark.
That doesn't really work.
Just keep going. You almost got this. You can land this.
The cord you never want to cut is the friends you made along.
Yes.
There we go. So your job as a listener to this show is to go find someone in their early 20s and convince them to watch Cordkillers. Explain what it's all about.
Done. Nailed it.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, also carried at diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk to you again later.
Hey, Tom Merritt.
Yes, Brian Brushwood.
Know who I love even more than my own children?
Your other children?
No, not my wife. I know what you're saying. I love our $5 patrons. These are the people that keep us loud, live, and independent. Thank you so much, $5 patrons.
You know what? I love them more than not life itself, because then I'd be dead and I couldn't appreciate them, but really, really, really close. And I'm so thankful that they are here to make this show happen.
Thank you so much to all of our $5 a month patrons. You guys are wizards. You're champions.
Thank you, everyone.
You're heroes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.